This is Astrid, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm just going to be doing just a follow-up on my adventures into Luna, integrating it in with my Ableton setup. So what I've been doing lately is really trying to readjust my ears to how things sound routing through Luna. In doing so, I did do some additional research with optimizing Ableton as well, and I kind of wanted to show you guys what I've been doing. So let's just go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you one thing that ended up being a major issue for me. So as I've been discussing over the past few weeks, my initial thing is that I was experiencing a ton of latency inside of Ableton. And it really didn't make sense because let me just kind of show you what kind of machine I'm working with. Show you that I'm not goofy and crazy. So I have a Mac Pro, late 2013 trash can Mac, and I swapped out my processor for a 12 core. Also bumped up to the maximum RAM, which is 128 gigs. And I'm also rocking an NVMe SSD 1 terabyte drive. So my expectations of my setup is that I should not have any latency at all. So the reason why I complain so much is the more that I'm experiencing, or the more that I'm delving into my mixing, I am starting to notice some things that I hadn't really heard before. And also that can be contributed to the new speakers that I just picked up. So I picked up a new pair of Focals, Trios, 6s, which actually have mid-range in them. I've retired my Focal Alpha 80s because they were giving me that imaginary center. And I needed to be able to hear a real mid-range because it's a problem area for me. I have a problem being able to hear it, and I think it's just because of all the years of wearing headphones and blasting things in my ears all the time. But I have problems hearing it, so I had to get something that would help me emphasize it more, and I need to spend more time just listening to mid-rangey stuff and being able to adjust it to where it's correct in my mixes. So in doing so, I noticed that within Ableton, there's a lot of phasing happening with my mixes, meaning that the left side and the right side are not quite lining up, so things sound funny. And what it was is that I was experiencing heavy latency. So in digging deeper into my latency battle, I discovered that anytime that I put plugins that are kind of CPU heavy within the master, it added to the issue. So what I did was I went through my master and I cleaned out all of the stuff that I had in there. And I moved it over to my new master channel, which is real-time, latency-free, using the real-time engine and DSP. Now, mind you, these plugins are running their AUs inside of Luna. So the one thing I really like in my mixes is the imaging, the S1 imager. Some people save this as a final step in the mastering to give it more life, but I'm so used to hearing it that I actually include it in my mix. So when I go to master my stuff, I normally don't have to mess with it too much. I may adjust it a little bit just for taste, but that's just one thing I have to have in there. The other thing is that sometimes the loudness wars get me. So I throw in an L3 Ultra Maximizer, which I'm weaning myself off of slowly. What I'm starting to do now, instead of pumping it up inside of my flat mix, I'm adding it in my master and just leaving it alone. I've been using and learning how to read the LUFS meters to make sure that I'm at least adhering to the streaming standards, and I'm not over exaggerating my volume and gain levels, before I even get to the mastering stage. So I have it in there, but I may end up just taking that out and not ever doing it again. The other thing I just started using, which has been a nifty tool for me right now, is the tonal balance control by Isotope. It's part of their Ozone 9 suite. It allows you to be able to kind of, using AI, see it analyzes your mix, and based upon their analytics, it shows you the range in which most of the tracks that are being played today, what range your song falls into, and you have the ability to be able to, use your EQing and adjusting to taste. And of course, everything is subjective based upon your hearing. This is just a good way to try to, balance your mix so that things are, within standards. The last thing that's in my chain that I moved over there is this Noigent audio master checker. Now, I'm probably going to be retiring this because I'm going to be using an external meter, so I can take this out so I can have less plugins running in my master channel, and just use the external one. But what this does is it allows you to be able to analyze, based upon the standards of the streaming services, what your music sounds like versus what those platforms recommended volumes are on their particular services. So normally what I do is I use the Apple AAC standard, and I have one profile set up to test against. And what it does is it raises the normalization volume of the track as it's playing against their standard, and you can tell if yours is already too loud. So I've been using this a lot, and it's helping me because the last time I released something, which was my very first release, I normalized too much, and it's so quiet that when you listen to it on the service, it brings it up to a volume, but it's not the desired volume that I wanted. So you live and you learn, and I'm learning. I'm learning a lot, actually. Also, I've been messing around with this tape and really getting used to the Neve summing. I ended up going ahead and grabbing this thing because I'm finding that it is very nice. And very nice to have add. It gives you a very smooth top end. It accentuates whatever you want to add, either highs or lows. The type of music I am used to producing is more bass driven. So I normally leave the settings kind of the same depending on what it is I'm doing. I may adjust the trim, or I may dial it back. But so far, I am very impressed, extremely impressed, to the point that it's forcing me to have to really hone in on my vocal chains because things are sounding so different now. So what I've been doing in my vocal chains is trying to come up with I wouldn't say a formula, a templated formula, but I experiment all the time with different things, but finding something that I can kind of go to, learn the plugins, not have to spend a whole bunch of time tweaking them, and just kind of tuning my ears to what they sound like. The first thing that I've been using for at least a few months now is the Waves Sheps Omni channel. This thing has everything you really need for vocals in it already. It has a de-esser, an EQ, a compressor, a gate, and it has a preamp with saturation in here. I love this thing. It's a one-stop shop for me. I don't have to go grab a whole bunch of different plugins because I can just use this. It also comes with a ton of already really good presets. I love using Andrew Shep's vocal presets because they're awesome. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. I normally end up having to maybe adjust some of the compression or maybe some of the de-esser out of it. But for the most part, those presets are they're a blessing because it gives you a starting point from where for where to go when you're starting out. The next thing that I've been messing with is auto-tune, and this is the new advanced version that's part of the UAD platform. So I've been just kind of tinkering around with this thing, letting it automatically detect what key it's in, and then tinkering around with the settings. I haven't gone super deep into it, but I actually found a really good YouTube channel with an engineer who knows what he's doing. The guy's name is Wavy Wayne. Check him out. He has some extremely good videos. He's a Pro Tools head, but the guy really understands mixing and mastering. And he gives you really good, thorough walkthroughs of plugins, and how to actually use them and what they're used for and how to get that specific sound. He also sells templates on his website. And I just want to say thank you, Wayne. I've been watching your videos, and I've got to go back and watch the auto-tune videos and really start digging into this thing, because the stuff you were doing, man, yeah, I was very impressed. And I've had this plugin for a while. It's just I don't use it that often. But yeah, it's cool. The next thing that I have in here is Portal. And Portal is a very interesting Outlook plugin. And they've got presets in here, but I tend to like adjust them some because it can be kind of extreme for vocals. Like I'm using the Slate Speech one. Sometimes I'll dial back the effects or the grains, and then I'll move my grains around. But then I'll adjust the wet and dry, because sometimes they tend to be really excessive from an effect standpoint. But that's what I'm using in here. My other go-to effect is a Sound Toys Echo Boy. That is my absolute hands down effect for vocals. I'm not a fan of reverb on vocals. I don't like the way it sounds. I like delay. It gives you a more natural sound to me. It sounds more like a real room, whereas reverb is very airy and open and really strange to me on vocals. So I'll tend to like lean more towards delays instead of using reverbs on vocals. It's just me. I guess I'm just a little crazy like that. The other thing that I just started using, and up until I started using this thing, getting the vocals to fit in the mix was driving me bats. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I was adjusting the compression. I was adjusting volume, overall gain levels, but you have to write a vocal. And the vocal has to be written because it has nuances. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's soft, sometimes it's loud, and you have to kind of go with how the vocals are actually going. So the Waves Vocal Writer has been, wow, amazing. It's an amazing tool. And I haven't ever used this thing before, but when I started using it, I've been working on a few mixes today. I found that when I added this thing, the problem that I was having with placement went away. So check this thing out. It's amazing. A very, very useful tool. So again, my chain right now is for all of the live instrumentation that I'm playing. I've been switching it over to external, which is by default pointed to that virtual channel. I haven't messed around with any other setups. Now, I did reach out to Ableton, and I was told that you have to have a return to come back in order to completely bypass their setup. But I swear to God, when I did that, let me just go show you what I'm talking about. When you add a return, It's under the audio effects. It's an external audio effect, and it has to be the very first thing in the chain for it to work. If you have other plugins in there, be mindful of that if you try this. And I'm going to leave this graph on. I'm going to show you something. So if let me think about this for a second. I'm going to let's make that 21. I actually need, there we go. 21 and 22. I'll make that my return. Let me go to preferences. And let me add 21 and 22, which is that other virtual channel that I created for myself inside of Luna. Let me show you that. So I do have another channel. I ended up hiding it because I'm not really using it. Let me see. I want to show all. How do I do that in Luna? That is funny because I haven't done it. Let's see. Let me think about this for a second. Where would it be? Let's go over here. Look under, see, tracks. Let's see, I want to find a track. There it is. Okay. Learn something new with me right there. Just have to go and open up your track view, and if you hide your track, you bring it, it'll actually reopen it. Okay, so now I want to get rid of this thing, which is this. Okay, cool. So this is virtual port 1 and 2, and it is pointed to 21 and 22. Okay, let's just notice that. And then this return, I pointed my return from 21 to 22. And then remember that my output is 23 and 24. So that gives me a complete loop inside of Ableton. But this is what happens. Let me play this. Hold on. Let me turn everything down so I don't know what I'm going to experience here. Okay, see that? It's like a big delay that it creates. And I think I understand why. Okay, so they told me I needed a return, but I already have one. Okay, and this is the other reason why. So if you go and look at your other outputs that are showing up in here, this shows up. See, that's 27 and 28. That is a natural return back from your routing. Hold on, let's go look at that over here in the console view. So if I go to my IO matrix and I look at 27 and 28, see that? 27 is a monitor and 28 is 27 is a left and 28 is a right. So these are natural returns that are being brought back in already. So I already have an in back from the DAW, back from the console. So if I put another in back from the console, it creates a loop. So what they told me was incorrect. So the way that I have it set up is probably the best way to do it without causing yourself a headache with a loop. You can try and adjust everything down, but what I found is it creates a lot of extra noise in the signal chain that you really don't want in there. See how my noise floor is like 0 right now. There's no noise in there. So I have the graph on so I can kind of see what's happening. I try to keep this thing on now because it allows me to be able to see what's happening, not only from a graphical perspective with the sound spectrum, but I can also see noise that's happening. I ended up having found like a bad cable in my setup. I wasn't able to tell where the hell it was, and I've got a lot of things that are hooked up, but I saw noise all the time in here, and it come to find out it was the cable that's plugged into my no coast. I ended up having to replace that. So also, I think, the console to me has always been a really complicated piece of software. And I think it's very complicated to other people as well. You really have to think about it as from a real hardware mixer perspective when you're dealing with it. I don't like the way they label things, like alt is actually aux. When you go looking for the things off in the IO section, you would expect that it'd be aux. It's not, it's alt. So, I mean, there's some things about the console that's just a little strange. But I've been tinkering around with these, and I have a secondary pair of monitors that I use for like their Ableton mix cubes that sound actually absolutely horrible, but they're truth tellers. It allows you to be able to hear a lot of the mid range and a lot of the highs, and it completely almost removes the bass out of there. So you have to figure out a way to bring bass back into your mix with these things. And if you can mix on those, it's going to sound good anywhere. And that's what I've been finding. But also, in doing so, I also have a little Bluetooth speaker that I've been using that sounds absolutely horrid as well. I think I'm going to be replacing it because when I throw to it, it's producing some extra harmonics into the sound stream that I really don't like. So I'm going to be replacing that with probably some bookshelf speakers or something that I can find that are inexpensive, that'll give me that consumer grade sound that I need. I was thinking about a boom box or something like that, but I'm also thinking about space in my studio. I'm already working in a 10 by 10 room, and I've spent quite a bit of time with acoustic soundproofing, or now acoustic panel reduction in here. So I worked with GIK Acoustics and went back through and had an analysis done, and using REW, figure out how to make this room work for me so that I can actually do some mixing in here. And so far it's been working pretty well. That is it. With that, that's all I've got. If you have any questions or comments, please leave those in the comment section, and I appreciate you spending time out with me today and watching. I'll see you on the other side.